I want to help arm people with knowledge so they can protect themselves. How can you protect something if you don't know what it is? How can you defend something if you don't know what it is? People are, oh, I know my rights. Most people don't know their rights. Everyone's so distracted with the federal government and what the federal government's doing. They're not paying any attention to what's going on right at their own home. People got to start going to state capitals in their county meetings, their city council meetings, and start showing up and saying, no, we don't like this. We can't just be on Facebook and Twitter. They need to see y'all's bodies in the capitals. I've been to 3 capitals this year, and I'm not a lobbyist. I didn't have any bribery money. All I had was a little bit of luck and the Constitution on my side, and that's not going to always work.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of The Last Review. This is your host, Sergey Fenswick, still not my real name, and we have a special episode as we both cover and interview one of the most innovative and authentic activist journalists and writers in modern media, Doni Anthony. What's her stance on the liberty movement? Is she going to change the world one pamphlet at a time? Let's find out. Doni the Don Anthony has been influencing the liberty space in many places over the last several years. From her time as a former mayoral candidate for Arlington, Texas, to being the director and champion of multiple groups for rural Americans and small farmers, she's cared for and led many local causes. Additionally, she's a writer, host, and editor for the Liberty or Else blog and podcast. And she is hot off the heels of her recently released first volume in a series of pamphlets called Vices, Crimes, and the Pursuit of Happiness. She can do it all. Yet, in a world where we are consistently and constantly bombarded by tragic news that forces us to take sides and compound the tragedy with our own anger, I'm looking at you, instant experts of international wars, we all deserve a mental break from it and to focus on legitimate and positive change. Moreover, for advocates of liberty and American third parties, a new lens on news and info is much welcomed. We need a narrow scope and an intense spotlight on local government and policies. You know, things that actually directly affect our daily lives. Look, we should definitely hold on to our humanity and care about national and international affairs. But my Uncle Dan's latest take on Israel, or Trump being fined for a gag order, really shouldn't affect me or my Uncle Dan as much as it does. What issues affect our daily lives? That's where and when someone like Doni Anthony comes in to remind us to keep our eyes on what really matters. You see, she's looking at the direct effect. She's looking at local law enforcement and politicians and how they directly affect our everyday lives, as she investigates, explores, and exposes them like no other. Diving into the analysis matrix and into the accuracy category, Doni Anthony earns a 21 out of 25. Whether it is focusing on specific local law enforcement in various counties across the country, or infiltration of unnecessary and manipulative materials into school districts, or even the stripping of liberties from individuals, Doni the Don exposes events and issues that affect us, our children, and our tax dollars. Her investigations are thorough and well-sourced. Keeping her from a higher score, though, just may be time. The scope of the work is still too specific and libertarian-based, but with more time, her network of contacts should increase and may lead to her connecting the dots across counties or municipalities. For authenticity, Anthony scores a strong and perfect 25 out of 25. As evidenced by her updates on events through social media that are sometimes raw and sometimes charming, it's obvious that she's going to tell her audience exactly where she's coming from. Yet, she's not going to promote many, if any, politicians. She's not in the business of playing team sports. And something that's just as important in modern media is her ability to hold off on chiming in on every news item with a new hot take. Some battles aren't worth fighting, and sometimes more information needs to come in before developing an opinion or idea. She purposely strays from those issues that don't have enough truth behind them. Also, the work on her series of pamphlets, beginning with Volume 1's Vices, Crimes, and the Pursuit of Happiness, shows a bold, daring honesty to her work. Her research and argument on how vices, anything from gambling to drugs, were not and are not to be punished and are actually protected by the Constitution may not be an overwhelmingly popular notion with everyone. But it's where her research led her, as she collected instances of the Constitution, particularly the Ninth Amendment, being undermined. Furthermore, her solutions in the pamphlet would benefit all sides of the political spectrum in that it may very well lead to harmony with law enforcement. Doni the Don is as real as it gets. For originality, Doni Anthony earns a 21 out of 25. Her work with the pamphlets, and there are more to come, is groundbreaking. They're not just ideas, they're putting action behind her ideas. And she's also making her work available free for download at her website. Many in the activist journalist space will talk and say things that earn clicks and cash. But when it comes to actual plans, only vague promises are made. Anthony flips that business model on its head. Still, the liberty movement is facing an uphill battle due to previous stigma and some public ignorance. Volume 1 is a strong start, but future volumes of her pamphlets may have to lean more into Doni's more unique voice, while also recognizing the fact that many ears want to avoid hearing about something that's too different, like libertarianism. It's a difficult needle to thread. Anthony ends up scoring a 19 out of 25 in the Intrigue category. While her ideas, her clever turns of phrase, and her subtle humor are abundant in her work, a more prominent and interactive platform is still needed. Consistent output across platforms looks like it may be on the horizon, and newer audience members are going to need something like that. They need the comfort and anticipation that comes with regular output. It enhances engagement. So whether it's advertised release dates or spaces they know they can visit every couple of days, Anthony's work and online community will be best served when her format hits a groove or is stabilized. Before we look at the final scores, it's important to note that up to this point, scores for the last review clearly show that we are looking at the best modern media has to offer. These are polished outlets or people who know how to engage their audiences. That's why no one has scored below 50 as of yet. Still, there is the matter of trust. Outlets that are scored in the 50s and 60s can be pretty hard to trust on a consistent basis. Outlets that are in the 70s may need a few qualifiers and to proceed with caution. However, a score in the 80s, while it's not universal or absolute with this scoring, score in the 80s one should feel comfortable watching and recommending to others. You may not always agree with them, but you know they're coming from a good place. That being said, Doni the Don, Anthony's work, earns a total score of 86. From what we've seen from her work thus far, this is someone who clearly has both the ideas and the powerful voice to speak out on those ideas. While there's still room to grow for her platform and enterprise, she speaks from the heart to the heart of what matters. Are we being denied or limited by our own government in our everyday lives? And what can we do to improve our daily lives in terms of government and politics? With Doni Anthony, we have someone looking for those answers. Instead of complaining about problems for clicks, she's looking for solutions. And now we see what some of Doni Anthony's solutions and unique perspectives are in this exclusive interview with her. All right, hello and welcome. With me is my guest, Doni Anthony. She is a former mayoral candidate for Arlington, Texas. She's the director of multiple groups for rural Americans and small farmers. She's a writer, host, and editor for the Liberty or Else blog and podcast that has premium options and bonus content available at libertyorelse.com. And she has recently released the first volume in a series of pamphlets called Vices, Crimes, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Doni, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited because I got to see some of your work, and I think this is a genius idea that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Tell me about yourself and your journey, and maybe even some of the various turning points that led you to the liberty movement.
Well, let's start back when I was a wee little person, get my first job, 16 years old. And, I knew they're going to take out taxes, but I didn't know how much they're going to take out. So I was working for Mars Supermarket. I'm all excited. I have like a little list of what I'm buying already written out. Then they give me the check, the actual money part, and it's missing a lot of my money. So I go home to my parents. And I said, something's wrong with my check. They go, well, what's wrong with it? They took too much of my money. They go, yeah, that's what happens. I go, but do you see all these things? They took out the federal taxes, state tax, county, and city taxes. I said, what are they doing with all my money? I was like, I need to find a way to fix this. As time goes on, I realize it's the government, the government and their spending. And I was like, okay, so which of the parties spends less money? Which of the parties is less about taking my paycheck and stealing from me? And I was under the impression as a youngin', so Obama was the first person I could have voted for, but did not. So I watched him and Hillary debate it off, during the Democrat side stuff, just because I wanted to be well-rounded. And I looked over to McCain and their campaign, and I'm like, I don't like nobody. I ain't voting.
Fair, yeah.
So Obama then had then Mitt Romney. Don't like none of y'all. I ain't voting. But I did like Ron Paul. But I fell for it. I fell for you can't win Ron Paul. The Republican Party's not going to put him up there. It's not going to happen. I fell for that. He was actually the first politician that I liked was Ron Paul. Then Trump came around. He was a really good salesman. I thought he was going to tear some stuff down and, death to the establishment, and right. I really did not like Obama. Let me just tell you how much I disliked him. Like, I think that was one of the reasons why I went for a Trump back then. Because, I saw Gary Johnson. I was like, oh, well, like I said, again, I fell for that. Can he win? But Trump is talking about tearing things down, and people like him and behind him. He most likely can beat Hillary Clinton. And so I actually registered to vote in 2015.
Okay.
So I could vote for Trump. And it was false advertisement. It was not what was sold. Take the guns first, due process later. The feds are still here. It's still big government. The government got bigger, bump stocks and all these different things. And then I thought, maybe we can fix the Republican Party. And I was running for mayor. Because actually before that, I actually had organizations myself, and we met during COVID. We didn't care. We went to a private office and went to a conference room. And that's it was the conservative SIP. And we would have politicians come in, and we had dinners for them to raise money. We went and rallied, and I spoke at a lot of rallies and meetings and whatnot, and endorsed people for office. And then when I was like, I didn't like any of the candidates that were running for mayor. I was looking for initially who I could support. None of them said anything about the lockdowns. None of them said anything about, repealing laws, so we could have a better relationship with cops. That was my mindset back then. And so when I ran for office, I only really ran, if you think about it, 2 months. So I got in on February, my paperwork was done. And then basically March, April, and the election was May 1st. So I only ran for 2 months. And sometimes we're like, haha, you lost. I literally ran for 2 months, and I got 560 some people to vote for me. Brand new person. They don't know in Arlington, Texas, doing that.
Yeah, you did well. I looked into it. I was impressed for sure. Yeah.
Well, they didn't like me. They didn't like this new person coming in talking about liberty and repealing laws, and the police only focus on actual crimes. And so, I got targeted. But that's another discussion, another day. But I got targeted. But the thing is so funny to me is these little organizations who are like Women's for Republicans and all these little Republican groups, they literally helped a Democrat get that seat. They went with the status quo. He's rich. He was a cop. He was a Marine. And so instead of getting behind the person who knocked doors with you guys and for your candidates, spoke at your rallies, you got behind this person. But that's okay. I got people who are not a part of that. Brand new people. I knock on doors. I went to the grocery store and was handing out pamphlets. One of the ladies I handed a pamphlet to was like, oh, I already got one of these because I put on her door, I guess. And she
Okay.
said, me and my husband were talking last night. We're voting for you. And they're a Black couple. So, and it has nothing to do with me, necessarily being a Black person. They were going to support me because it was only like 2 white guys running. So it had nothing to do with that. I was the only female, and I guess they liked my message. But it's just interesting. And then after all this, I'm like, okay, Trump's still endorsing bad candidates and the quote unquote rhinos. He's still endorsing Greg Abbott. He's still endorsing all these bad people. What's his name? Dan Patrick. He's still endorsing the bad guys. So I'm like, oh, he's not learned his lesson, or he is just a part of the establishment. Like I thought he was probably now at this point. I started questioning him being a part of the establishment. So I was like, you know what? Screw all parties, abolish all the parties. And then I just started thinking, honestly, regardless if there's a faction or party or not, they're still going to concentrate in certain areas. But it'd be at least really nice to see them on a platform where we can kind of get an idea what their ideology is, because not everyone does their own research. And so I was with what is their Aquarian Anarchists. They have a great show. Check it out. When I was on their show, they were talking to me about anarchism. And I had questions like, well, what would happen though if someone were to murder you? Is there going to be any justice? So they answered a lot of my questions, and they led me to Lysander Spooner.
Okay. I want to ask you about Spooner in just a moment, but I thought it was I hadn't heard you talk about before. You talked about, and it almost ties in with your pamphlet as far as you're talking about, or decriminalizing certain vices and decriminalizing certain things, and how that might actually benefit relations with police. And yes. I did not, this did not even cross my mind until you just said it right now. Did you, could you expand on that at all? Or?
Yeah, that was actually part of my campaign, though. I have the website taken down now because I have no intention on running anything else anytime soon. So I took the website down. But I actually had each of my policies had a video, and I talked about my policies. And so, all that stuff with, defund the police or the Black to Blue crowd and whatnot. I was like, honestly, we have a better relationship with the police departments if they only focus on actually fighting crime. We can actually see them as the heroes they want us to see them as. So, when you think the fire department, do you feel any anxiety, anything bad going to happen to you? No, that you're thinking they're most likely going to go help someone and save someone, so there's no anxiety there. EMTs, not necessarily always tied to the city. There's private and there's the ones that are government funded, but you don't get, anxiety when you see EMT going by because you don't feel like they're going to, extort you or possibly if you don't comply or obey with their orders. But with police, people have this, like, if you see a cop is get behind you, people, not just Black people, all people, sweaty palms, start feeling nervous, like, are they going to pull me over? What did I do wrong? You should know what you did wrong. And the fact is, if there's not a victim, then obviously there must not be a crime. And so why are you behind me right now? So I think that would really do a lot better for our communities if we had cops that were actually peace officers who were protecting and serving people. I think police departments need first responders and detectives. So if someone goes up missing and we find their body somewhere, a detective does that. If your police is going to respond to, hey, these are men in this building, he's going to shoot up everybody, first responder. Sitting on the side of the road, extorting people, that should not be a part of the equation. Y'all take enough of our money, let alone for y'all to scare us with cops, with guns, if we don't listen to them and give us tickets and pay court fees.
Right. There's probably a few more fees you could throw in there. That we're forgetting here. But back to Spooner, Lysander Spooner. I hope I'm pronouncing the first name right. I wasn't too familiar with him until you started quoting him on social media. So he seems to have a major influence on you. He's a 19th century lawyer, essayist, and activist too. So how were you introduced to him, and what about his work inspires you?
Aquarian Anarchy is the one who introduced me to Spooner, and they're like, hey, you need to go read his work. The main one I first was introduced to is about the Constitution and how there shouldn't be any kind of treason because you didn't actually sign a contract with them. You can't go off the contract of some ancestors who you didn't even give permission to tell them that they have the right to have authority over your life arbitrarily. And so I started reading a lot of his work. I binged I binged. And one of his works I read was Vices, and Vices Are Not Crimes. And I didn't know what I was going to be getting into when I read it. As I started reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. This all makes sense. Yes, yes, yes. And I was just thinking, you know what? Why don't we have more people discussing Lysander Spooner and trying to implement his ideas today? And so what I really like about Lysander Spooner is he was an attorney, but a different kind of attorney than we have nowadays. They did attorneys different back then. He's from the 1800s. During the Civil War, he had an issue with Republicans. He did not like Abraham Lincoln. He said, we never even had to go to the war. This could have been solved without war. He was also an abolitionist. He is so hardcore. He was like, okay, you need to go ahead and help the people in the South, arm the slaves out there, help them take on these slave owners, shoot them, shoot their dog if they have to, if they will not let these people free. Because we do have a right to help protect someone else's rights. And so, and he was like, and then if you've been working, the fruit of your labors, these slaves should be able to have this land. So they work this land, they create this product, they should have it. And I was just thinking, I've never heard the argument before. And then I say, why didn't I hear about Lysander Spooner going to school? Oh, of course we couldn't hear that. We had to have Abraham Lincoln as a hero. But by the way, did you know Abraham Lincoln had help with Russia during the Civil War?
I did not know this. No.
I found out on accident. I was researching something else having to do with the Humane Society people. And one of the guys, Lincoln has sent him to Russia as a diplomat. So I was like, wait, what did Lincoln have to do with Russia? And I looked it up. Russia helped the North because French and Great Britain were going to help the South because they wanted that cheap cotton. And so Russia was like, okay, no, we see a personal interest for the Union to stay together, so we're going to help Lincoln in the North. Mm-hmm. But Lysander Spooner, in a sense, you know who Spike Cohen is?
Yes.
One of the coolest compliments I got was I was a reincarnation of Lysander Spooner. But he's an inspiration. People really should read his work. And he writes to his officials. He took on the Postal Service. Because, in Article 1, Section 8, it lists all the duties that authority that Congress has. And then they try to tell Spooner that, we are the only ones who are allowed to have a postal service, so you can't compete against us. But in the end, postal services got cheaper after Spooner was there because they realized there's cheaper ways of doing it and stopped charging people crazy amounts of money. So he's got a lot of things in his background of him taking on the government, him being an activist, him looking at and discussing natural law and justice and how that's originally how our founders were thinking when they were putting things together.
I'm wanting to talk a little bit about your pamphlet now. My questions boil down to, and it's going to be at least 3 volumes from what I hear.
Right.
But what's the driving force of writing and publishing this pamphlet? What's the big why behind it, and maybe even why now as well?
I think that I'm an activist myself, and I'm actively helping people. I'm actually working with a man in Arkansas. You may have heard of breaking news yesterday that the sheriff for Hot Springs County in Arkansas was arrested by the FBI.
Yeah.
So he's actually a part of the case that I'm helping someone with, where they target this man named Jose. They stole all of his dogs and all of his roosters, accused him of fighting his dogs against the roosters. Apparently there was puppies on the road. That's how they, trespassed on his property, came twice without a warrant. And they have like 2 felonies for him and 9 misdemeanors because he wouldn't sign a paperwork over to abandon his animals. And I'm having to see these things every single day. And the issue is most people don't know what their rights are. So when you don't know what your rights are, the government can just, walk in and scare the crap out of you and get you to sign plea deals or get you to give over your animals. And they'll say, if you just do this, we'll leave you alone. I want to arm people, not necessarily like they can go buy their own guns. I want to help arm people with knowledge so they can protect themselves. How can you protect something if you don't know what it is? How can you defend something if you don't know what it is? People are, I know my rights. Most people don't know their rights. And I think that my whole goal with this pamphlet is to get the pamphlet out. As you see, I have more of a national platform. People in Arkansas, people in Oklahoma, Texas, Kentucky, all the other states, and have a copy of it, read it, and start educating their community on it. It's very important that people start distinguishing the difference between a vice and a crime. The criminal system should be focused on criminals only, not people's vices. And so, for example, if you harm yourself and your own property, that's just you. There's no reason why the government should be intervening and arbitrarily telling you what you can and can't do. You harm someone else and their property, the justice needs to be served, because that's wrong. And I'm saying that includes things like fraud and things of that nature. You may not physically have been harmed, but they may have tricked you out of your money or something like that. That's different. But we have a justice system, and a lot more things can be accomplished. A lot more murders can be solved. Missing people can be solved. Sex trafficking may go down tremendously. Human trafficking can go down tremendously if our government focuses on actual evil criminals and leaves people to their own vices. Let them make mistakes along the way to their pursuit of happiness without throwing them in a cage or robbing them of their money and finding them for things that has nothing to do with you. And I don't see anywhere in the Constitution. And by the way, our rights did not come from the Constitution. It's just supposed to be recognized by the Constitution. I didn't see anywhere in the Constitution that gave the government the authority to do what they do. Where in the Constitution does it say the government has the authority to tell you cannot smoke weed, sell weed, or make it your enterprise? There's nothing in the Constitution that gives them that authority.
Right. Would you say it's your stance or your belief that like the criminalization of these vices is really it's weighing down society? Law enforcement is misdirected. The people are being penalized, punished unfairly too. I think I heard you say before in the past that like there's even a class element to this as well. That by criminalizing these vices, we're either pushing people down a class or even kind of creating a lower class where the elites can continue to profit or control lower classes.
Yes, definitely. If you think about the elite class, who owns a lot of these businesses, who's hiring people? So they want these kind of laws passed. Like, I don't want you to come in late from work because you had fun last night and was drunk. Or I don't want these things happening. And you know what's interesting is that wasn't an idea that I came on my own. I do a lot of reading and research. A big part of my daily life is reading and research. And I can't tell you where I read this at, but it was actually discussing how the elite class will actually be used, will want more harsh laws and to push their values and their beliefs and their will on other people to get them to behave the way they want to. Because, you know, we're supposed to be the peasants. We're supposed to be productive machines, little good old people to steal money from. You know, we work our butts off, hours and hours out of the week, and then the government's taking a commission. Your rent's going up. Your mortgage payments are high. Property taxes are getting higher. I mean, it depends on what states you're in, but I'm hearing a lot of issues with property tax. And there shouldn't be no property tax anyways, because I shouldn't be renting my land that I paid for to the government. So when it really comes down to it, it's just that like, look at Hunter Biden. You know, he gets to smoke crack online and weigh his crack on the internet. But then his father was back in the 90s. We're talking about there's no, we're not going to have any kind of softness on this. The judge can't even have anything on this. At the minimum, you're going to get locked up. You're going to be thrown away. What happened to his son? Nothing. And this is not even a thing of me being, I'm against Biden. I don't like when anybody is getting special treatment over anyone else. Honestly, the sheriff I just told you about, this being sealed, everyone else will be on a freaking top 10 wanted poster. Everyone else will have their business on the media telling everyone else's business, but you're protecting them. That's not right.
Right. And what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I'd say a lot of the liberty movement just makes basic common sense. And like, you won't find too many logical arguments against it, yet it struggles to gain in popularity. Like, people, for whatever reason, they want to push back. I think you put it almost perfectly in your pamphlet when you were talking about it was only like, what, 2.5, 3 years after the Constitution was made, we already started to undermine it. Okay. So like when you come up with these arguments, you know, for liberty and kind of like the decriminalization of vices, it makes perfect sense. But there's almost a knee-jerk reaction. Well, no, that's not right. Because it's embedded in our culture to kind of undermine some of our own rights and undermine the Constitution. So you've taken on this uphill battle of promoting liberty, I think from both a place of passion and compassion. I want to read you a quote from your work here because it affected me. You state, some may lack a comprehensive understanding of their own vulnerabilities and their interconnectedness with others. These individuals might inadvertently support an idea that threatens the very foundations of personal liberty and autonomy. However, ignorance does not excuse the potential consequences of their authoritarian stances. And that's where I feel like that's where your passion comes in. You say it warrants at best, this is where your compassion comes in. At best, sympathy for their lack of insight, or at worst, a sense of disappointment that they fail to grasp the potential repercussions of their beliefs and actions. So I love that. I love that whole paragraph because I think it really embodies both your passion, but your compassion too. It's even part of your action plan, action steps near the end of your pamphlet about being compassionate or having empathy. So this is a long roundabout way of asking you this, which is you're swimming upstream in most cases. Even though you're making logical arguments, we're so used to this system as it is. So how do you get people to listen? Is it tough? How do you handle feedback or even pushback when you put out this work here?
Gotcha. So let me first work on the pushback part. That's the easiest one to tackle first, because the pushback part of it comes from, like I said, the ignorance. Most of that's online. That's not really in person. In person is a lot easier to have these conversations and it's more logical. Sure. So as you can probably see this morning on Twitter, it's going back and forth with a Republican about, them attacking the liberty movement in the sense of the Libertarian Party in the sense, saying that it's not feasible. And we should still go ahead and compromise on our rights. We can't have all we want. Okay. So my whole thing is when I share that, it's like, well, at the end of the day, we've already compromised enough. We've compromised a lot. How much more do we need to compromise? And if we're going to really start moving forward, because, we have a party that says we're for the Republican Party. We're for limited government. We're for all these things, but they're not. My thing is I could still be on the Trump campaign, his train and keep on, I'm not saying anyone else is griffing, right? I'm not going to put words in anyone else's mouth. And I could grift off of it. I don't believe in it, but I can make a lot of money, get a lot of attention, probably get on Fox News and all these things if I kept pushing something I don't believe in. I can't do that. But you also have to meet people where they're at. Okay, I think some people are thinking more so at the federal level. It's impossible for liberty movement to make any kind of accomplishments. In a sense, I can agree with you on that. Let me meet you where you're at right there. But my goal is to start local anyways. Why don't we start getting city councils that are libertarian? Why don't we start getting counties that are libertarian? Your state legislators as libertarian. Those things affect you right now. Your back door has more corruption in it than you can probably imagine. Everyone's so distracted with the federal government and what the federal government's doing. They're not paying any attention to what's going on right at their own home. Now, I had to learn that compassion because before I was a firecracker. Why don't you understand this? This is so simple. This is logical. Why don't you understand? But I had to learn to be a storyteller too. So, like I said, I'm a part of these 3 organizations, rural farmers. They're heavily being attacked. There's a lot of victims in this country. We just got to have the power to go and the time and effort, because it does take money to do everything, to go and outreach and talk to them. So in Texas, for Texas, for example, the game fowl community, have you heard of them?
No.
The Roostermen. So they're heavily being targeted by the federal government, state governments. I mean, literally, the humane societies are getting badges and guns to go after people with their animals. So this is protecting animal owners, right? So these people have been, most of them have been lifelong Republicans. But since they've been, working with myself and the other organizations, we've been pulling the bills from the federal level and the state level. And we say, oh my goodness, there's Republicans on these bills attacking you, and so are the Democrats. So it's not just the left that you're mad at. You're mad at your party too. And they're sick and tired and fed up with the Republican Party turning their back on the rural area. They actually had a meeting I spoke at this past weekend where a libertarian who's running Supreme Court was there. They kept pointing at him out over and over again. We're going to vote for this libertarian for Supreme Court in Texas. These people were lifelong Republicans. Mm-hmm. The Libertarian Party has shown up. They have been activists when someone's being targeted or whatnot. They've been there to give advice or help any way they can. They've also shown up to our poultry shows. And they've gotten tables. This is an ally effort, right? They had tables, been able to tell about their platform and what they believe in. So, okay, libertarians have gone to these poultry shows. They've outreach. They're talking to these roostermen who are a very small minority in America, but can really make a big impact when it comes to elections, where direction it goes. And they have also, and I'm talking about, they went to an Ohio show. And by the way, this is also a lot of Hispanics in this community when it comes to roosters. And then you have, they went to South Texas on their weekend when they could be doing something else, have come and shown up to talk to these people. So in person, it seems a lot easier to convince people about these, especially if they're a victim or know people in their communities who are victims from the state.
So that's interesting. Is that one of your, I guess, one of your principles or philosophies as far as outreach go? You do look into some of these local injustices and see where you can help or where you can kind of point them in the right direction in terms of politics?
Honestly, I don't have to look for it. It falls right in my lap. I get calls about it. I literally was sent a video yesterday of a man on his farm who was slaughtering his own goat. And then the Humane Society, it's just Ohio. Ohio is terrible for animal owners, just so you know. Had slaughtered his goat so he can feed his family. And they came and threw his meat on the floor and was taking his other goats away from him. And I'm watching them like, hey, and they have no warrant, by the way, as well, doing this. This is a pattern. This is a big issue across every state in America. This is huge. That might be another show for another day to get really into that. But you guys need to start really paying attention to what your government's doing, because if they control the food and the land, they control the people. So, and these organizations do not want you to eat meat. They do not want you to wear clothing that come from animals. They don't want you to get medicine that's was tested with animals. They don't want you to even have them as pets. They're pushing their beliefs on you, and they're going to the government to do it. State level, county, city, and the federal government. There are 8 animal bills in Congress right now, and people probably don't know about it. And there's also a Congressional Animal Protection Caucus in Congress right now. You know, the government don't care about protecting animals, nor do these societies either. So, Matt Gaetz is on there. He's supposed to be the Republican hero. He's on there. Nancy Mace is on that caucus. And they receive money from these organizations and they pass their bills.
That's interesting. You think of them clean one way, and then you look at it, all you got to do is shift a little bit, look at it from a different angle. You start seeing,
That's why you can see when I go after people that, honestly, I don't care if people get mad at me for going after Matt Gaetz online. He is not a friend. He's an enemy. And my thing is, well, they like him for this and that. I'm sorry. That's a big deal when you're trying to say that a human being is equal to an animal and you're trying to take our rights away. That's a big deal. But you notice why Republicans and Democrats, this is what they can get along on. You see, they don't ever argue about it on TV.
No, you don't. I do have a question about the pamphlet again. You describe vices as, and I'm paraphrasing here, but like folks trying to find happiness, maybe making mistakes along the way. I feel like you use that word happiness on purpose. It was intentional because we're talking the pursuit of happiness, are we not?
Right.
So in a sense, you are, I think what you're arguing for here is that vices are in a sense constitutionally protected, in perhaps by the 9th Amendment. Is that right?
You got it.
So why do you think they are being punished at this point? Why are the vices being punished? Why did it exist in the first place? Why did 1794 happen? And why does it persist through today?
So there's always going to be people who want to weaponize the government. So if you can't convince people on your own to kind of convert to your beliefs, then they run to the government to do it. That was a religious issue in 1794, where they wanted to punish vices and immoralities. And so they ran to their state legislature, and for that example was Pennsylvania, to pass the laws and do this to people. And so the reason why it's going to continue to happen, because people want to control other people regardless. That's what they think the government's there to control. So let me go to this vehicle called the government and then use it to control other people. And so it's always going to be a problem. And it's really frustrating because people just want to just live their lives freely, and not bother other people. But people have to understand there's people who think that they want to be left alone, at least let people alone. But then they hear something they don't like, that's someone else's vice. And then they say, oh, actually, we should punish them for that vice because this is not okay. I've actually had to tell the game file community about this a few times, especially if they're talking to people in office, and they say, you know what, you're coming for us for what we want to do with our birds, or just for us having our birds. But you're not going after the drug dealers. Why aren't you going after them? Oh, hold up, y'all can't do that now. Because just because you don't like something someone else does, doesn't mean you should be forcing your beliefs on them. I can't actively keep helping if you want to infringe on people's rights. And so they get it. They go, oh, you know what? You're right. And then a lot of them have stopped saying that. The ones I work with have stopped saying things like that. And so it really comes down to control. And as long as this government is here as a vehicle for that, people are going to run to it to do it. As long as it's legal to go lobby and pay politicians and bribe them to do your will, your bidding, that's what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, if the public is aware of something, when the public is aware, okay, when it comes to guns and the public's aware, they are, no, these are my rights. Second Amendment. But when it comes to anything else, they don't know anything else really besides that. The Ninth Amendment, honestly, I stated in the pamphlet, the Constitution, you guys think about this historically, the timeline. Constitution passed September 17th, 1787. And then the Bill of Rights was added thanks to the Anti-Federalists. The Bill of Rights were added in December of 1791. It came after the fact. So basically, after adding the Ninth Amendment, in a sense, they have little to no lawmaking power. So, of course, the judicial branch, the executive branch, and legislative branch are going to ignore it because they want to have power. They want to rule over you, and they want to talk about it. They say, oh, the judges don't like talking about the Ninth Amendment. They don't like talking about, natural rights and natural laws. Well, I don't care if they like it or not. That's what they took an oath to, isn't it?
Right. The present day, though, how does the liberty movement gain traction? Because I'm really interested in how you see, because you're not someone who just talks a big game. I mean, you back up what you say, you walk the walk, and you've done some incredible things in your life already. So I'm really interested in how you see it playing out over the next year or even 5 years, because, like I said, you tell people think local, and you do. Like, you're talking about the various communities that you've been in touch with. You talk about running for mayor. You talk about not grifting. In case people didn't know already, all right, your pamphlet is downloadable for free.
Yeah.
All right, so you definitely care more about the message than the grips. Like, you walk the walk. That much is clear. So, how do you see things playing out, or how do you think things should play out for the liberty movement over the next, let's say, couple years, and what's the healthiest path for them?
Number one, you have to find your allies and the other victims from the state. And that's what I'm working on now. That's what we're doing, so that you can start having bigger numbers come out and supporting during elections. Elections is not the end all be all. That's just one piece of the pie, one part of the problem. And the next part of it is people got to start going to the state capitals and their county meetings, their city council meetings, and start showing up and saying, no, we don't like this. We can't just be on Facebook and Twitter and saying we don't like what's going on. They need to see y'all's bodies in the capitals. I've been to 3 capitals this year. I went to Texas Capitol quite a few times this year. I went to Oklahoma's Capitol and Kentucky's Capitol this year. This is my first year. And I'm not a lobbyist. I didn't have any bribery money. All I had was a little bit of luck and the Constitution on my side. And that's not going to always work. But imagine if there's more than myself or 5 people. Imagine if there's 20, 100 of us that show up at a city council meeting. Imagine if there was thousands of us that went to the county meetings. Same with the Capitol. Start showing up. The authoritarian side, their people show up to argue against your rights. You have to show up. You can't be in and saying you're in a spiritual war or we're in a war with the left if you don't show up. You have to show up. I understand people have jobs, they have children, they have other responsibilities, but none of that's going to get any better or improve at all if you don't stand up. And if you don't know how to, you know where to start. Come to libertarianism.com. Start talking to me. Start talking to other folks. If I know if there's someone in your state that you can work with, I will link you up. I do it all the time. When I see someone being messed with in a state, I say, hey, Libertarian Party of this group, and I tag them, or I reach out to Angela or Spike Cohan. Do that. The biggest thing that's really going to help the Liberty movement is everyone in the Liberty movement start highlighting the activism that people are doing. Every time Spike Cohan helps somebody with "You Are the Power," that needs to be going viral. We don't need to have, I'm going viral because I'm attacking Biden all the time. We need to highlight what we're doing. That's how you're going to convert way more people when you're helping them and showing the Libertarian Party shows up and helps than you're going to do with almost anything else you're going to do. Because if you think about it, it's the cells. It's kind of like a trial period. Oh, I haven't voted for you yet, but you've given me every reason to vote for you. Now I don't want to vote for a Democrat anymore, or now I don't want to vote for a Republican anymore, because I see you working in my community. I see you defending my rights, my freedom. So when you go to office, I know, and I feel in my heart and believe that you're not going to turn into an authoritarian tyrant. And you're going to look out for my best interest because you're already doing it. Activism is a key. It needs to be highlighted more. Chase Oliver does a really good job with his activism. He's fighting the cop city in Atlanta while he's still running for president. And I've actually spoken to him on the phone and addressed my things with him. I got to talk to Spike Cohan. You guys start highlighting those people more. There's a guy named Derek Bronze in Houston, Texas, who got kicked off the ballot for the Houston mayor race, but he's an activist in his community. We got to start highlighting all these different people. There's a lot of people in the Libertarian Party of Texas who, like I said, work with the game file community. They also help the man, Moses Roses. You see about that stuff? They're going to use eminent domain and take his bar and give him a crappy deal. The Libertarian Party was there. They showed up and highlighted and put a spotlight on Moses Roses. What was going on with him? Imagine if more of us did that. Just because you want to make a viral tweet about that, where no one's talking about nothing, start making things that actually matter go viral.
Yeah, a lot of those other viral aspects you forget about in a day anyway. Whatever culture war you're tweet you're putting out. I shouldn't have to put a picture of myself wearing makeup and then saying some information for y'all to like and retweet it. I want to just say it and I have to go on camera. But although I mean you do, it's an excellent point, and I think the Liberty movement's really got that in their favor right now. Is the fact I think they are more positive overall and are willing to promote others. Well, if you're talking just the straight-laced Republican crowd are very, I guess, territorial and negative, and they whether they're wanting to giving each other purity tests or I don't really like that term anyway, but they're trying to find ways to push others down to prop themselves up, while the Liberty movement, as you're putting it, I see a lot of just lifting each other up.
Yeah, we need to do that. I mean, there are going to be divisive things, and we're going to have things we disagree with, but we're individuals. That's normal. That's healthy. But when it's not really an echo chamber. People are going to disagree with things. Some people like certain things, but at the end of the day, the goal is individual liberties being protected. The goal is freedom. But we just have different ideas on how to tackle that, or certain things on how to do that and who we want to be that face to do it. I don't think we need a particular face. I think many faces can be used, but we can't necessarily do what the Democrats or Republicans are doing, where someone comes out of nowhere, tells you some story. Oh, I used to be a Democrat, now I'm Republican. And then they get like 100,000 followers in a week, know, and then they just push that message because, what's her name? I don't know her last name. Her name's Kathy. She ran for U.S. Senate against Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, and Trump didn't endorse her. And then she's right now working on Vivek's campaign. She told Black people that they were dumb.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work. I mean, I tried that in the past. It didn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you're going to have to meet people where they're at. And here's the thing, that assuming all Black people are Democrat is ridiculous. I think a lot of them are Democrat, but there's a lot who don't vote.
Exactly. So,
you want to start waking up. You're yelling at people who, it's okay, Republicans, keep doing it. I love it. So when you do it, the Liberty Movement says, hey, come on over. You're welcome here. So Black people are like, I don't want to vote for Biden. I don't like him. He's terrible, but I'm never voting for a Republican. If that's not all of them, but the ones that they're calling dumb, that's what they're thinking about. This, what you're doing, they've been doing for quite some time, and it's obviously isn't working. And so I like what Maj Story's doing. Black Guns Matter. Go into the neighborhoods, teach them about their rights, teach them how to use firearms, teach them how to protect themselves in these areas. And that's the way you do it. You got to meet people where they're at. If there's people that are straight up Marxists on the left that are Black, they're never going to come over anyway. So there's really no need to really worry about them. Focus on the people that you can reach. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, when I ran for office, there were some Black Marxists that were trying to attack me, try to lie and say I had an issue with gay people. Like, and I asked them, can you please go and find me the video or tweet where I've ever said anything like that? They couldn't find it and they apologized. Not all of them, but one of them came back and apologized. So it's just, we have to really focus on how do you obtain something. If you're a salesperson, you want to sell someone some internet, you're not going to do it by talking crap about the customer. You're also not going to probably do very well if you're only attacking the competitors and not selling your product for why it's better than theirs.
Right. You're playing your role, or you're playing your part as much as you can with the pamphlet. And I've also heard you talk about, hey, download it, print it out, print as many copies as you want, and perhaps that quickens the movement. But just kind of spitballing here, do you see any way to expedite the movement to the point where 2024 is a big year for libertarians, both locally and federally? Or do you just think, forget federal for now, let's just stick to the fundamentals, stick to local, grow from there?
I think both are very important. I would like to see a libertarian win, but how the system is set up, they're not going to win. But what they do get their 5%. I think they can do way more than 5% now, honestly. But if they do get their 5%, then they're on the ballot. So okay, now you can't just kick us off because we didn't get 5% during the presidential race. But that will trickle down. That national attention trickling down, people seeing that we need that presidential candidate up there, a good one, so that information can trickle down in the states or your counties or your cities. I want someone like that libertarian that ran in 2024 in my county or in my city or in my state legislature or in my courts, my prosecutors. You know what I'm saying? People don't really talk about the judges or the prosecutors. You know what I mean? Like, those are elected positions. Put libertarians in there so we can actually have a real criminal justice reform.
Well, and I really like what you said before, where you said, stop waiting for candidates to appear before, go out and recruit, find those people instead of waiting to pick from, the mediocre candidates that are out there.
Exactly. Like, while you're out there working in your community, you guys can probably decide, wait, where do you live in your city? Okay, you're going to run for that seat. I'm going to run for this one. You run for that one. And everyone knows you already, you know? Mm. So it's like, oh, I know you. So you have to spend less money on buying material for your advertisements and door hangers and yard signs because people actually know who you are. Instead of just saying, hi, guys, I'm a libertarian. I'm running for office and vote for me. You know, I'm against the government and all this stuff. People are just like, okay, I like that. But we need more outreach. And, you know, and if you think about it a little bit, a lot of libertarians are introverts. That's a lot. That's a little sacrifice, you know, to kind of like get out and start doing this. I'm an introvert myself, but I see that I need to go out and talk to people. Like I literally this past year spoke in front of a crowd with at least 2,500 people at El Gallo show. Was it kind of scary? Kind of, but I don't wear my glasses, so I can't see their face. So I can't feel them judging me, you know. So I've done so many speaking engagements and talking to people, and they're just like, yeah, the libertarians, like it's getting around. And I don't think it's going to take 10 years for local governments to start switching up, unless the authoritarian government finds another way to keep people off the ballot. But I don't think it's going to take that long. I think about 4 years, they're going to be seeing a nice shift. There'll be way more people in office that are liberty from the liberty movement. And you know what's interesting? I'm looking at some of the people who've been Republicans for a long time online. Some of them are coming around too. You know, I got to give them their flowers. They've been watching for a while. They've been giving me crap for a while for like my thoughts. And then they never unfollowed. We still stayed in contact. And then they're like, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm changing my mind. And so I'm just like, yes, start getting that going on in your local areas because that matters more than anything. I mean, I hate to see what is happening overseas. I'm tired of the endless wars. But then we have a war going on here too. People, it's just not as, they think it's not as bloody as what's going on over there. But we have a war going on here too. It's us against the government.
Yeah. Now, some of your investigative work does shed a light on that, and that's a big reason why I want to talk to you as well. And I don't know how much time you got, but I got a couple more questions. Can you have time?
Go ahead.
Okay. So you mentioned it before, and it's a couple times with animals and the government kind of that you wrote about PETA. All right. So the people for the ethical treatment of animals and perhaps some of their infringements on liberties, particularly imposing information on minors in schools. So I want to talk a little bit about just because we talked about your pamphlet, but I want to talk about another layer of your work, you know, the blog, the social media, your investigative, I'd say journalism / activism. So what can you tell me about what's going on with PETA in schools and how alarmed should we be by this?
You should be very alarmed. Number one. First, let me just tell you who PETA is first, right? On that blog post, you may have seen them say animals are not to be eaten, worn, or experimented on, or harmed in any way. That's their whole slogan. PETA is an animal liberation organization. The founder actually came from England, moved to India, and then she ended up in Florida, was a cop for animal stuff, and then she became, and this, by the way, is a huge grift. It's not just PETA. There's ASPCA, HSUS. They are all working together to take away y'all's rights. And so if you think about it, people are talking about, you know, my food prices have gone up a lot, and they instantly think inflation. No, it's not disinflation. In California, Proposition 12 was passed, and a judge, unconstitutionally let it sit, where they tell you how your pens for pigs and chickens, all that's supposed to be set up. Or in other states, if you do not follow what California says, then you cannot ship your meat here. You cannot ship your animals here. And so that's another discussion another day too. There's there's a bill trying to fight that in Congress right now, and these organizations are fighting against the ones who are trying to fight for for the farmers in other states. They want California to dictate how farming's supposed to go. Okay, y'all hear that? California dictating other farmers in other states. And so when I get to PETA, they're attacking people at very many different angles in their lives. As you see that, you know, Apple doesn't do the leather cases, I guess, anymore. And PETA was like, hooray, we're proud of you. And these different things. They like when the celebrity wears leather or fur, they like try to bully them, harass them for wearing that stuff. But let's get to PETA in the schools. It's been a big deal talking about them trying to sexualize children in schools and indoctrinate them and change their genders and all that good stuff. But when you have PETA in the schools with curriculum that's teaching speciesism. Speciesism is racism, but with animals. Like the fact that you think that you're higher on the food chain, or you're different than an animal, then you are a speciesist. And so let's give you an example of what happened down in one of the schools. The teacher has the kids' names on a bulletin board, and it is supposed to be about if they're a vegan, if they're a vegetarian, if they're a meat eater, or what they're working towards veganism, being a vegan. And let me clarify. There's a difference between just being a vegan and the veganism as in a sense of a religion, where they won't force their beliefs on everyone else. A vegan, most likely, I just want to eat my food the way I want to and leave me alone about it. They don't harass you for eating meat. So these people are having kids, PETA's got in trouble for videotaping themselves, breaking into research labs. Research labs and destroying property and letting animals run free. They've done a lot of things. They've gotten bad raps, and I'm surprised they're even allowed to still exist as a 501c3 organization. But they're telling your kids to start rescuing animals and videotaping themselves. They're telling kids that they want to get rid of the FFA and schools, 4-H. They don't want anything. They don't want animals in school at all. When we were in school, we dissect the frogs or the eyeball of the sheep or things like that. They don't want that either. You can't have that in your schools. So they want to take away education. Then they don't want you to really learn anything. These teachers are taking these kids on field trips to sanctuary locations where they say they quote unquote rescued animals. Most likely they're a farm animal. They were stolen. Rescue normally means stolen. Unless you are going to a dog shelter and someone's like, I don't want my dog anymore. Most of the cases they're stealing these animals and saying, oh, you committed a crime or you didn't take care of this animal. So they're teaching these to the kids. They are trying to get these kids to go vegan, to scream in the cafeteria, hey, we want vegan lunch. We want vegan lunch. Like, you guys, when I was in school, if I didn't like the school lunch, my parents packed my lunch and brought me, I had a different lunch,
But how are they infiltrating the schools, though? I mean,
so there's teachers. This is crazy because y'all go digging this. These teachers are supporters of people. These teachers are the ones they're going through to teach this stuff in the schools. Just like when they have the little drag queen story times, or when they're trying to do the sexualization with kids, there's certain teachers that are doing it. And they're not only going through the school itself. They're actually on YouTube. They have PETA for Kids. And in an article I put in there, the little black girl, she said, who's the worst animal on the planet? She didn't say no crocodiles. She didn't say no lions. She didn't say hyenas. She said human beings are worse. And I watched a lot of those videos, Animal Planet, where I watched them, how they eat animals. It looks pretty crazy to me. Like you're over there tearing and eating up on something while it's still alive. I mean, I think humans are doing a pretty good job being nice about it. We're not sitting there on the deer's back with our knife and fork and just going in on them. But while they're still alive, the whole thing is that kids are very impressionable. And at one point as a kid, I thought, and I think it may have been something that was in my education, because this whole environmentalist stuff, they're tying it in with this whole animal liberation movement. Are animals supposed to have rights? Kids are impressionable. If a teacher's teaching animals are supposed to have rights, it is wrong for you to eat any meat. It is wrong for you to wear it. Like take them shoes off. Nope, that's bad. Kids will listen to that. And then imagine going to a sanctuary farm, you're getting to meet pigs, you're petting them, and then your teacher's like, this is what they do and slaughter it and stuff, and they put it on your plate. And then the kids are like, some of the kids actually said they turned vegan from this. This is manipulation. This is infiltration. And I don't think that most parents are knowing this is being taught in their schools. Maybe some are, but I also don't know for sure the school itself or the district knows what's going on. The teachers just goes in there. Some of these teachers have autonomy more so in their classrooms, depending on what kind of subject, more like humanities. A lot of these teachers teach humanities or English or things of that nature who want to push this. And you can also see one of the guys, I actually looked him up and on LinkedIn, and he had he and him on his profile, and they're friends, and they've been like activists for a long time themselves personally, and then they become teachers. So imagine if you can start with the kids while they're really young, and then they can start teaching other people, and the cycle goes on and on and on. Why is this dangerous? I mean, your kids can be your politicians one day. Your kids may start telling on your parents for something that most people don't think is wrong, and say, "Hey, you said this is bad. My parents did this," and then they go and tell someone, and then the teachers go and have cops go arrest you, and you probably they can probably end up losing their kids. Some of these things, like people can lose their kids based off what's happening with the animals. So that sounds familiar. Does someone else use kids to turn against their parents before in the past in another country? I don't know if that sounds familiar to you or not, but Germany.
It's not just, it's kind of a growing trend though, to kind of like hit kids against their parents, or even to hide things that kids are learning from their parents. And like there's some people that like scoff at something called parental rights, like, oh, how like it's something like the parents are bad for wanting to know what's going on in their school. I'm just wondering if like at the district level for the schools, if they're kind of giving their approval on this, or is
that's the part of my next part of my investigation level. I discovered the problem. I looked at the tools they have laid out. I put them on the article, and I'm like, oh, okay. By the way, guys, they actually have written curriculum on their website that teachers can use, and it's called Teach Kind. And that doesn't sound so bad. Teach kind, but if you go and look at people and actually know what they're about, there's nothing kind about these people. But this is really, really scary, because I'm just looking at this stuff, and I'm like, why go after the kids? You can't get the adults, so you rent to the government to force your will on other people. PETA is a 501c3. They can't technically lobby, but they're very actively politically active. And they give money to the HSUS and Wayne Possell's organization called Animal Wellness Action. And they go and use that money, hundreds and thousands of dollars lobbying. And that's just maybe a couple legislations. That's not even all of it. And they go to every state, and they lobby in the states to take your rights away. And so I've actually I have not put this out and haven't told anybody, so it's kind of like new on your show. I've actually been trying to put up together my own bills and have like an attorney look at it, and see if we can introduce it and find the best way to get it to stop. Because like I said, we're always on defense. We need to be on offense. And we'll see how it goes when it comes to that. But y'all got to watch out what's going on with PETA. Look at the information. Look at the stickers, free stickers and stuff that your kids are asking to pull off the internet, because they're offering free stickers with their ideology on it. Look at what they're watching on YouTube. It may seem like, oh, this is cute, little PETA videos for kids, and they're just brainwashing your kids. And they literally have a little book about an ant, and the ant's like, please don't step on me. I feel pain and misery. Like an ant. Like, it's not even just animals. They're going down to bugs.
Okay, so that leads me to I guess one of my last questions, because you're making me laugh, and humor, you're no stranger to humor on your social media or in your writing. I feel like you're both your published and your broadcasting work has plenty of charm and humor. It doesn't beat around the bush either. You give it to people straight. Like this one example from your recent pamphlet. I'm going to read it word for word here. The Ninth Amendment is probably one of the most critical amendments in the Bill of Rights for protecting individual liberties and rights. Every branch and level of government frequently ignores it for that reason. And I don't know, it just hit me. It got so deep. It started making me laugh. And while I was reading it, it's like, because it's so important, every level of government ignores it just. So I am a fan of your style of delivery, and the way you do interject humor into your work. I just want to know, whether it's podcasting or some of your investigative work, or even when it comes to the more formal pamphlets, what are some of your guiding principles that you go by when you publish, stylistically, and how you deliver your message? And my second part to that would be like, are there any modern day pitfalls you try to avoid when putting out work? Yeah.
I'll answer your last one first. I pick my battles too. Doesn't make sense to go, head on something where it will be more of a backlash in a sense than necessary. Is it worth it in the sense, I really want to just really truly hammer down heavy on Trump sometimes. Because I'm irritated with people, because that same group of people just told people, just comply, back the blue a minute ago. Now we got documentaries talking about the police state. Now we got people over talking about, if this can happen to Trump, this will happen to you. I tried really hard to what? It's not worth necessarily consistently poking at that man, because it's like I said, there's going to be people on that side of Trump. Eventually, Trump's not going to be running for office anymore. And, there's no reason to turn them off completely. And, like I said, you don't know how the federal election will go, but most likely you may end up with him in office. And if there's a chance he could listen to people from my community, the communities I've been working with, he's sensitive, maybe not talk, so much crap. So and in a sense, I want to pick my battles, what's actually matters, what's more important, because sometimes if I'll pick some comments of people talking smack, but like I said, this has been learned. I've learned to be nicer and more compassionate about this, because I have to remember I was at one place in my journey as well. So it's picking your battle. What is the outcome going to be of this? I will call out what Trump does when it's bad, or if he's being an authoritarian, but I'm not going to sit on Twitter all day or every single day and bash him every single day like the left does. Like I can't do that. That is not productive for what I'm trying to accomplish.
Sure.
My strategy, I honestly really don't have a strategy. I think what happens is I have majority of my life, like I said, I'm an introvert. I'm actually kind of shy. But I've always engaged with people. I was in sports. I was in theater. I was in choir. I worked. So I already have this thing where I've built relationships with other human beings and communicate that way. I can't always guess how someone's going to react to something that I say. And I'm surprised you think I'm funny. I actually think I'm too serious. Sometimes I think I can be boring a bit, but for me, I didn't say much about religion or anything, but I pray a lot. I ask, can you help me, lead me in the right direction in my research so I can save time? Can you help me polish this message before I start speaking on it? Because I think that's probably why it's as organic as it may look for me, because it is really truly organic. I don't have a formula. I haven't. The only kind of like training I would have done to help myself was when I was in sales and being a better salesperson and learning sales techniques. But yeah, I was in the sales business before I even thought about politics. So it's not necessarily a strategy. I mean, I just go in and I do it. But when I was in college, I did English rhetoric as well. So that may be like a piece of me organizing how I write things and present it. It may come from that. But me actually like just consciously thinking about it, and that, sometimes I have to lean on Jeff for that. Like, how should I deliver this, in a sense where it's better, and get his opinion on some things. Because, he's a really good writer himself. And he's actually really funny. His satire is like, I'm sorry. Was it Babylon Bee? Has nothing on Jeff.
Nothing on the smattering. No.
Nothing on him. Yeah. But yeah, they don't really necessarily have a technique. I tell everyone I'm just a regular human being, and I just want to fight for our rights. And if you want to join me in that, just do it. If you're willing to learn, let's do it. It's time. It's no more time to keep on compromising. It's no more time to waste. Because at the end of the day, we're losing so much every single day. And what's going to be left for your kids and your grandkids? Do you want to tell them that you just complied? I don't think you want to do that. So.
Yeah. So like, I feel like we we desperately need more voices like yours, like Jeff's. What do you think? What do you want to see more out of modern media these days in terms of the way they present news?
I mean, I honestly, I can't say much for modern media. I don't really watch it. You know, I can't even use a remote control on a TV.
Well, as I say modern media, it's kind of what I cover, which is YouTube, Spotify, Rumble shows that produce the news. Yeah.
I would like to see them bring on more regular people. If they're saying that they say they're about liberty and freedom, I want to see it like Timcast. Start bringing on people nobody knows who they who in the world they are, and just start talking to regular folks. I'm gonna actually start doing that myself. I would like for them to just, you don't really have to be as polished, you know what I mean? Like this, you know, just relate to people. Bring on regular people nobody knows. Don't make it about yourself so much. Make it about the message. Make it about the people. Educate more. I don't really watch a lot of it anymore, but I did recently watch something of Timcast, and he was bringing up the 14th Amendment. Here again, I feel like we're only bringing it up because it had to do with Trump, but that's a way to start educating a very big audience about their rights.
Sure.
So I feel like, yeah, entertainment, but they seem, the thing is like, oh, independent journalism is the new thing, but they're getting their information still from the mainstream media, and they're just giving their opinions on it. Like, do a deep dive into it. Bring the Constitution, bring our rights into it, and then maybe offer some solutions instead of just commentary.
And that's why I see with your work more than anything else, it is solution based. It's practical. So with those two guiding principles, it's very helpful, very useful. I guess my last question, the most important question of all, I saw it was your birthday recently. I'm just wondering, I saw the video. Is Jeff any good with a lightsaber? Because I saw him wielding that thing in the VR.
I mean, novice level, but you know, crew. I would have been a lot worse.
You guys are a great 1-2 punch for the liberty movement. Your work inspires, and I can't thank you enough for being here today. So is there anything else you'd like to add, whether it's to something we said earlier or just a message for any of our watchers and listeners?
I actually told Jeff I was hoping you was going to ask me something, and I saw you do a score thing. And I said, I bet you my score might be low if I were to get one, because I'm pretty biased towards authoritarian. But that's the only thing I would add. But I will say, please go to libertyorelse.com. And no matter what happens on Twitter or any social media outlet, that's going to be the website. You can come and engage. If you want to start doing some work in your state, you can come on that website. Let me know. I will set up a form and a group that is specific to your state and make you an administrator. And so while you're doing your work, you can use the Liberty Else platform to do that. And also, my podcast is also called Liberty Else as well. And if you're wondering where that came from, people probably think, oh, give me liberty or give me death. At this point, I want the people to be questioning, well, what would happen? Like, I need that, or else I don't want to die necessarily, but I need people to think about it before they mess with me. So, for anyone's rights.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for giving me so much of your time. It's really, really appreciated, and I wish you nothing but the best in the future.
All right. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
Thank you for watching or listening. Please like and subscribe and share this video with as many people as you want. Post in the comments if there are any shows you want to see reviewed. I also have a developing website and social media accounts. You can subscribe to those too. Thank you for that.